everyone, and welcome to the Mash and Drum Whiskey Room. My name is Jason C, and if you're a subscriber, thanks so much for the support. If you're new to the channel looking for the latest in whiskey and bourbon news and reviews, you have found the right place, so hit that subscribe button below and hit that bell notification so you know when I'm releasing a new video. The fall season, the falling leaves, the crisp air, pumpkin spice things, and of course, the height of bourbon hunting season. Most notably, the release of Buffalo Trace Distillery's annual antique collection of whiskeys. Now, this year, the 2019 George T. Stagg comes in at the lowest proof in this bourbon's history, and it's today's review on the Mash and Drum. Born in Garrard County, Kentucky in 1835, George T. Stagg grew up to be a great salesman and administrator, and it was his skill as a businessman that made him one of bourbon's historic names. Stagg was working as a whiskey salesman in St. Louis, Missouri when he met Edmund H. Taylor Jr., also known as the legendary Colonel E. H. Taylor. The two joined forces and built one of the most dominant whiskey businesses in the 19th century in America. By 1887, Stagg was the head of the E. H. Taylor Company, which encompassed two neighboring distilleries, the Old Fire Copper Distillery, or OFC, and Carlisle Distilleries. Now, after a fallout between George T. Stagg and Colonel Taylor, they split, and in 1904, the entire complex was renamed in Stagg's honor, a name that lasted until the distillery was rebranded as Buffalo Trace in the summer of 1999. The distillery is still named for George T. Stagg on its listing in the National Register of Historic Places, however, so Stagg name lives on both on the distillery and on the front of this very bottle. Now, every year, George T. Stagg is a crowd favorite from the antique collection. It's big, bold, flavorful, uncut, unfiltered. It's usually around 15 years old. This year, the biggest difference in George T. Stagg, this particular bottle comes in at a low 116.9 proof. Now, this is the lowest proof in the entire whiskey's history. Master distiller Harlen Wheatley said it's because barrels located on the lower warehouse floors is the reason. He goes on to say many of the barrels for this year's Stagg composite were taken from the first floor of the warehouse. The first floor is cooler with higher humidity levels, therefore the alcohol evaporates faster than the water. So let's get a closer look. This year's release contains bourbon from barrels filled in the spring of 2004. It's 15 years and 4 months old, comes in at 116.9 proof. The storage location of these barrels varied across warehouses C, H, I, K, and Q. Now, the evaporation loss for this year's batch was 56%, which is a bit higher than last year's release. The 2019 release is available now for a retail price of $99, but as many of you know, anything from Antique Collection can be heavily marked up. George T. Stagg is usually seen in the $400 to $450 price range. All right, guys, so I've been obviously extremely excited to taste this. Any sort of Buffalo Trace Antique Collection you can get your hands on is always an exciting thing for any bourbon enthusiast. So I've been looking forward to getting into this one. So let's go to the color first. And as you can see, this is probably a little bit darker than kind of your typical bourbon. This has a really nice deep dark copper color on it. I absolutely love the color of this bourbon. It's got a really rich kind of dark honey color. The legs on this thing just absolutely coat the glass. But I was really interested to see what this bourbon was like at 116.9 proof, considering a lot of my favorite batches have been in the 125 and over range. So let's get into the nose, see what we get, guys. Here we go. I mean, the nose on just like any George T. Stagg is just absolutely amazing. It's everything you want in a bourbon. Right off the bat, you get kind of that deep, rich cherry cola type of note that I always get on a George T. Stagg. Speaking of that honey color, that's in the color of it, I'm actually getting a good amount of honey in here. Nice sweet honey. Rich maple syrup. Get a ton of oak, getting a good amount of oak on here. You know, even at 116.9 proof, this is, you know, the alcohol, the ethanol is really kind of jumping out of the glass here. Definitely feeling it on the nose here. There's a chocolate note in here too that I'm getting. Let me see if I could whip some more air into this glass here. Let it really open up. Yeah, this is chocolate covered pecans. Good amount of cinnamon too, but chocolate covered pecan is kind of the strongest note I'm getting. Definitely some cinnamon in here. Some, you know, just your basic, really nice, ultra-aged baking spice notes in here going on. Maybe a little bit of nutmeg, too. Getting some nice rye spice in there, too. I think it's coming through as a brighter, kind of a orangey peach note I'm getting, too, which is really nice. Yeah, it's a beautiful nose on a bourbon. I mean, George T. Stagg's, you're going to get that aroma that you kind of know and love. You're going to get all the flavor, the bold flavors, the bold scents. It's just a great nose on a George T. Stagg. All right, let's go for the first sip. Here we go. I'm excited. Cheers. First sip, I get a ton of cinnamon and oak right up front. Tons of vanilla. Almost like vanilla extract I'm getting here, right on the front of the palate. I mean, it's only 116.9 proof, but, well, that was the first sip, so it's always going to be a little bit hot coming in. Let's see what the second sip does. Here we go. Cheers. Wow, it's amazing. The second sip was way more muted. The second sip came in, and a lot of those caramel vanilla flavors that the rich and the bolder ones, kind of the deeper, darker, rich caramel flavors really kind of took over here. But I'm getting still getting that chocolate note to go along with that cherry cola type note in there too. It's really nice on the palate. Always creamy, great mouthfeel on a George T. Stagg. It definitely sticks around. I mean, you could feel this on your palate go on for a little while. All right, let's go for another sip. Here we go. Cheers. Wow, it's this is probably one of the most kind of cinnamon and chocolate forward experiences I've had on a Stagg in a while, at least personally for me. Getting all the beautiful vanilla caramels, that really nice oak flavor, especially on the finish. But on the mid palate, just getting a lot of cinnamon and chocolate. You know, that 116.9 proof point is kind of nice because it's, you know, you're able to taste a lot of flavors without so much heat. So you're able to taste a little bit, but also the flavors for me aren't as big and bold as some of the other Staggs I've had, if that makes sense. Let's go for another sip here. All right, so that sip, man, this is kind of a changing bourbon for me here. So what's happening now is I'm getting way more cinnamon now on the front palate. It's like a pepperiness, almost like a cinnamon red hot candy. But as it works its way back, you really get that nice vanilla extract flavor. And then on the finish, now, this is where you get the age that comes in, the 15 and 4-month-old age of this bourbon. This is where you get kind of that leather note to it. Definitely still that pepper spice sticking around. I think this is actually drinking a little hotter than the 116.9, which is surprising. Let's go for another sip here. So that sip right there became a little bit easier for me. That one wasn't as hot as the other ones have been. I think my palate's getting used to it. And now it's starting to come to kind of a plateau here. You're getting the sugar sweetness, especially up front. But this is really coming through is really peppery. This overall cinnamon tingliness that's going on this is really nice. But, you know, I'm kind of missing that ultra like sweet candy flavor that you would get from a George T. Stagg sometimes. And I think I would get those on the higher proof ones. But I think what's nice though about the lower proof, if you like a lower proof bourbon, this one is really kind of, it's a much easier to sip than the previous George T. Staggs. This one has that spice, that sweetness, without the the crazy alcohol punch that you normally get from a George T. Stagg and the 120 and higher releases. So if you like a lower proof point, this might be kind of one of your favorites if you get a chance to pick it up. You know, what can I say? Obviously another great George T. Stagg release, but definitely different than the higher proof ones that I'm used to. So for me, I really enjoy the higher proof releases from George T. Stagg. I think there is more flavor to play with and explore. Now with that said, I still think this year's Stagg is still enjoyable. And if you enjoy a lower proof bourbon, this still brings the flavors that you enjoy without overpowering you with that overpowering heat. There's a lot of layered flavor here, and let's be honest, there isn't a bad George T. Stagg. Some just maybe better than others when you compare based on what you like. For me personally, I don't think this will be one of my favorites, but it's delicious. It's enjoyable, but I can say I've had some better Staggs with richer flavor than this one. All right, guys, it is time for a quick blind tasting and comparison. I want to throw in the 2018 George T. Stagg and also Stagg Jr. Batch 12 against the George T. Stagg 2019. So I have the 2019 Stagg coming in at 116.9 proof, 15 years, 4 months old. The 2018 George T. Stagg coming in at 124.9 proof, also 15 years and 4 months old. And the Stagg Jr. Batch 12 coming in at 132.3 proof, which is usually a non-age statement, but it's said to be around 7 to 9 years old. So let's mix them up real quick. All right, let's run through them real quick and see which one I like better on the nose. Here we go. All right, so this one I'm getting that cherry cola scent again. It's kind of a flavor that I usually pick up on George T. Stagg's, but it's definitely brighter. A lot brighter vanillas on here. Maple. I'm getting those caramels and chocolates on here too as well. Man, I don't know if this is the new 19 because this is interesting because this one I'm also getting the chocolate, but the cherry note is brighter on this one than I was getting on the originally when I was first tasting the 19. So I'm also getting a nice molasses type flavor on this one too. This nose is really good. It's really rich. It's very dark. The first glass here I really like. Interesting. All right, let's see what the second glass brings here. This one actually has a little bit less of a cherry type note. This one I'm getting a ton of vanilla, maybe some butterscotch in there too. Good amount of oak. This one isn't as bright as this one. This one seems a little bit darker. I'm getting way more oak influence on here. I'm getting a really nice apple note on this one. Pecans. This one I'm getting a little bit more of a mint flavor, kind of a mintiness to it. Could be coming from the rye in there. Definitely a little bit of citrus in there. Yeah, I really like that apple pecan note on this one. All right, let's go to number 3 here. This nose is really nice. This one is a little bit. I think this was the kind of a little bit richer than the two of them here. Wow, this nose is nice. This one is really sweet. It's dark. It's rich. Could be my favorite of the 3 so far. This one I'm getting that maple syrup type character to it. Definitely some butterscotch. Getting that chocolate note. Still getting that cherry cola. Man, this one's very reminiscent of what I just kind of got from the 3 here from the 2019. But I'm not sure if it's that one or not. All right. If I had to grade the noses, I say my favorite nose is number 3. I don't know which one it is, but we'll see which one tastes the best. But so far, the nose on number 3 is kind of jumping out as my favorite so far. So let's try number 1 first. Here we go. Ooh, that one came in hot. Again, I'm getting that molasses note that I was getting on the nose. Really strong. This one's extremely creamy on the mouthfeel. This one's really rich. That one's nice. Brown sugars, vanillas. Let's go for another sip of that one. Wow, that's good. The cherry notes, the oak. This one has such a nice mouthfeel to it. It's really creamy, really sticking to the sides of the palate. This one feels hotter up front, but it's not finishing too hot. This one's, well, maybe my palate's just used to the higher proof stuff right now, but I am getting that peppery finish, but I'm not getting that oaky, leathery note that I was getting on the 19 when I first tried it. Let's go for another sip of this one. The beauty of this one is the mouthfeel. It's very syrupy. It's sweet. It's missing that kind of leathery, I don't know, that kind of leather aspect to it. It's good, but I don't know if that would be the Stagg Jr. because I'm not like tasting the age on it like I would on the George T. Stagg. I'm not getting kind of that leather note on it. But this one is bringing a ton of flavor, which may make me think this is the one of the George T. Staggs. I don't know. Let's have some water. All right, let's go to glass number 2, see what we get. That one is just like a vanilla freight train coming through. That one's a vanilla bomb. So good. A lot of brown sugars. This is the one I was getting that little bit of that apple pecan note in there, and it's translating to the palate a little bit. So delicious. Let's go for a sip. Yeah, so this one on the finish has that oakiness. It has that little bit of a leather profile. It's very vanilla forward. Still get that cherry, but I'm getting more of an apple kind of a flavor profile in here, which is really nice. I love that in a Buffalo Trace when you get the apple pecan note. Just super delicious. Let's go for one more sip. This one I'm not getting as creamy of a mouthfeel as I was getting on number 1. But yeah, number 2 though has more of the kind of the big bold flavors, and it's giving me the finish that I expect from a good Stagg. It's giving me that pepperiness, that cinnamon, the oak, the leather, but to go along with that really beautiful sweetness, it's a really nice balance. So, All right, we got one more to go. All right, let's go to the palate on number 3. Here we go. Wow, this one even compared to the other two. Oh, now I'm really confused. I love the nose on this one, but the flavors and the palate aren't matching kind of the mouthfeel I was getting on the first two. Let's go for another sip. All the sweetness, all the deliciousness is all there. It's really nice. Vanilla, cherry. This one, yeah, that pepperiness is just really kind of shooting through here. The cinnamon spice, the baking spices, just lingering on and on and on. Go for one last sip. I'm not sure what to think with what either of these are, because they're all pretty similar. Number 1 has an incredible mouthfeel, an incredible syrupy sweetness on the front of the palate, but the finish isn't as complex as the other two. This one, I'm getting more of an apple note, which I really like. The cherry, you're getting a great balance of finish and also on the front of the palate. Number 3 is coming in with a lot more of that cherry, a little bit of that chocolate note, and that pepperiness that just keeps lingering on and on and on. So if I had to rank these, I'd probably put number 2 first, number 1 second, and number 3 third. So I'll keep those last. So let's see what came in third for me. Wow, this is the George T. Stagg 2019. So that one actually came in third for me. Coming in second place, wow, Stagg Jr. Batch 12. This is a crazy, delicious batch. If you guys haven't gotten Batch 12 yet, definitely be on the lookout for it. It's really good. Then coming in first was last year's George T. Stagg. I just felt like this one had the great balance of sweetness and flavor. So third place, the George T. Stagg for 2019. Listen, it's still absolutely delicious. It's a little bit low over proof, like I said, 116.9. It's the lowest proof ever released. I think if you like a lower proof, barrel proof experience, then you're gonna love this release. Like I said before, let's face it, no George T. Stagg is bad. When you're just comparing him to other George T. Staggs in the previous releases, it's, you're really just kind of nitpicking it, but still an absolutely delicious batch and definitely glad to have it in my collection. Now, if you can't find the George T. Stagg, which most people can't, this Stagg Jr. Batch 12, this thing brings some amazing flavor and mouthfeel at the fraction of the cost of this. If you can find the Stagg Jr. Batch 12 this year, like I said, it comes in at 132.3 proof. It's a way higher proof, but this one I think is a little bit different. It seems to have found, like Stagg Juniors for me just really drank very hot, especially the early ones, but this one has seemed to find the right balance of having the proof, but the proof being focused on flavor rather than heat. And I think that's what makes this bottle pretty special. George T. Stagg from 2018 was definitely my favorite of the three. This one probably didn't have my favorite nose, but on the palate was just syrupy, balanced, oak, leather, all that sweetness, that apple pecan note. But man, George T. Stagg, it's a hell of a name and a hell of a bourbon. All right, guys, well, I hope you enjoyed this review for the 2019 George T. Stagg with a comparison to the Stagg Jr. Batch 12 and the 2018 George T. Stagg. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the subscribe button below. Please hit that like button. If you haven't yet, find me on Instagram, find me on Twitter. Let me know if you've had the latest George T. Stagg, what you think of the lower proof. Do you like it? Is it your favorite? Do you like the higher proof ones? Have you had Stagg Jr. Batch 12? Love talking with you guys, and as I always say, it is not about the whiskey, it is the people you share it with. So cheers, and cheers to the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. See you next time.